The idea of these webinars is to reach out to international schools, international organisations, and international recruitment agencies to talk about how they are making systemic changes with regards to racial equity in their institutions. Today I am with Kevin Simpson, who will introduce himself in a minute. And I'm looking forward to a really interesting conversation. So, Kevin, could you tell me a little bit about your history in education, like before AIELOC, which is the organisation that you have developed, and it's really sort of gone on to sort of spread some good work.
Definitely. Thanks, Dominic. Again, thank you for this show, this platform, and just opportunity to learn from you and from others who are doing just this phenomenal work around the world. So again, kudos to you and thank you for this opportunity. I always like to start with saying I'm a kid from Flint, Michigan. That's home, born and raised. Was just there recently, catching up with family and mother. Haven't seen them in a while. And so that's my upbringing, as we like to say in the States. So I think a lot of just experiences and exposure to education, to programs throughout the academic year that sort of challenged and pushed me and primed me for who I was to become. I always like to give a shout out to my hometown. So education, wow, it's been a while. I've been here a couple decades now. it's coming up on, I started in 1998. A lot of people will say, wait, how old are you? Yeah, but I started in 1998. So my journey has been anywhere from Washington, D.C. to Virginia, to Maryland, to Vientiane, Laos, to Qatar, to the United Arab Emirates. Lots of places, lots of spaces, lots of different roles. So started off as a teacher, and then 16 years ago, moved into the international school space, working in Vientiane, Laos with the great John Ritter. I always gotta give a shout out to my first international head because they did me so right in terms of introducing me to the opportunity to work overseas. We're very supportive. When I go to Thailand, him and I commune at times. But did, just different things from starting up an education company in Dubai, serving as an adjunct professor, doing consulting work, mentoring, coaching teachers. So it has definitely been a journey. And, when I reflect on that, I think that's part of the staying power. I think a lot of times, educators might get discouraged, and this whole people are leaving within the first few years of the field. And I think it is for, us to, when you don't see something or you don't, or you want to see something, like how can you craft and create it? So I'm always, big on that next generation educators that yes, you can teach, but there's other opportunities that you can pursue in the midst of you being a teacher.
Cool. Yeah, sounds like a exciting journey, and I imagine isn't going to stop now. It's going to continue and build. Having other conversations with you previously and over the last year. Could you tell me a little bit more about AIELOC? What it stands for, why you came up with the name, and what you're doing, what's your role there, and what you foresee your role developing to.
Yeah, definitely. So AIELOC, we originally started 2017. I had I would say, to make this collective, one of our colleagues was applying for an international school head position. I was serving as her reference. And I like to check in when folks are applying for those types of positions. So I checked in with her, and she told me, unfortunately, that she was told, don't apply for a certain position. They want a white man for that. And for me, I think it was an accumulation of everything that I had heard at that point. I'd heard people share that, my race, my gender, my accent, my passport, where I come from, all these were barriers to me being able to progress forward. And, for me, I just felt like, why is that? That shouldn't even be the case. And, I was talking to a colleague 2 days ago, this stuff still is happening. It was a colleague who, certain name, certain country, goes to the interview. Her presentation, I guess, didn't match what the interviewees were expecting. And so she was turned away. And this was 2 days ago that I was shared this. And so for us, it was like something has to be done, something has to be said. And so I literally 2017 just set up a Facebook group, and it was set up as just an affinity space for just folks of color who are around the world. And it was just like, is this like what's going on? Just to have a conversation, just to just share, opportunities, and just to build a community. I think that's what was, for me at that point, was like, how do you build a community with people who are having these different experiences? And again, like we were saying earlier, it's like, is it just me? Like, am I only hearing this, or is this happening to only certain people? And so it just built from 2017 into 2019 when we said we want to sort of transition into an association. And I think that real goal and purpose was because looking and seeing what are other organizations talking about. Are they talking? Are they taking on? Are they looking at ways to fight discrimination, and racism that's so rampant at times in the different spaces in international schools, from statements to treatment and things of that nature. And so we didn't see it. And so I think that was the big thing, just talking to the leadership team of Gita, Marla, and Reem, was let's start it. Why not? No one else is doing it. Let's, put it out there and see what happens. And so we kept Facebook as an affinity space. A lot of people want to join at times, but we just, we talked about that, and we're just keeping it an affinity space because, again, we feel like there's no other space where, Black, Indigenous people of color around the world can come together, that are working in international schools. So we kept that as an affinity space. And so my role has been just, I guess, to put a title, it's been founder. And I think it more or less is just like running the sort of like the operation when it comes to looking at programs, connecting with community members internally and externally. Anything from like our 2 fellows who are stellar, Nyong and Rama right now, shout out to them, to interns, to again, building the community up and looking for opportunities for us to share stories, to share people, their work. So a lot of things that you'll see us do, especially on day to day, is amplifying the voices of folks of color, on social media, and even behind the scenes, things that people don't even know about, so just again, making sure that the names and the work that people are doing is a constant, and that even at tables where we might not be sitting, or tables are being developed, that again, people know and hear about us. And then some of the things that we're beyond sort of like the amplification has been just advocating for people. So, and there are times that means calling in and calling out organizations, so it might mean that if we see something, we always say, if you see something, say something. If you don't feel comfortable, bring it to us. We will say something. We want to make sure that we're advocating for everyone in these different places, around the world. And then our big thing is learning. We really looked at who gets to lead learning, whose voice is leading learning, but who's missing. When we look across like conferences, presentations, and around international associations, like why is there a constant certain face that's there? And I'm like, when you say international, when you say global, I know what comes to mind for me. And I want to make sure that representation is there. And a lot of this comes out of, conferences that we hosted in Dubai all the time with people from everywhere. And people would always say like, wow, I came to an international conference and it actually felt international, and we know that was our thing. Like, this is by design. We are intentional with this, with who then guests, invited guest star, the speakers are, and how we're making sure that we're going out and, inviting folks in, which has been our big thing. And then one area we want to build off definitely is the research. We said that there are some topics that, we want to learn more about us. So looking and seeing what are some of the questions, things that we want to learn about. So we invite in, we're going to have a doctoral student who's reached out to us about doing more on our research side. So we're very excited about that for next year. Again, so we'll support folks who are doing research in international schools, but at the same time, we want to conduct and do our own internal research at the same time. Long term, so we're doing a retreat coming up, and we're looking at this, so excited about this. So I think for us, it's starting to look at sort of 3 to 5 years out, what we want the space to look like. We're starting definitely to look more on the funding side, because ideally for me, I don't know, I've always been like I call it an education starter. I like to start stuff, but then obviously I want to make sure, that's why we're doing our fellowship, our internship, is to see how sort of, again, that next generation of leadership. So for me, it's like I might start it, and then it's like serving externally. So, someone else come in and be, whatever they want to be called, CEO, executive director, and things of that nature. So that's sort of where we're sort of seeing, direction wise, the association as it sort of grows over time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds amazing. And I think every time every other day or so, when I sort of see any posts or anything on social media, there's something new, different, and I can't keep up. It's because I want to be involved. I want to see what that is about. I want to read it and so forth. And so there's so much work that you're doing that it's amazing. And I can see that. I mean, one of my next questions is, how is your organization committed to change? But you've sort of already, answered that by looking at the extent to which you're going to go forward with this. And that's just, it's amazing that, you've got all these different programs. Could you talk a little bit about the Summer Institute that, and I think you're going to be doing something in November as well. Is that right?
Definitely. So some of the programs that we offer, we do anything. I know Summer Institute you mentioned. So again, going back to that learning, who gets to lead learning, whose voices are learning, what are some of the topics that are being learned? And so for us, it was this year again, sort of like pilot. Let's do a Summer Institute. Starting with sort of 5 leaders doing work around diversity, equity, inclusion, justice. So we had Darnell, we had Angeline's course coming up, we have Dr. Mary Ann, we have Cynthia, and we had Dr. Tanau, who launched us off at the end of June. And so short courses, 2 hours. And again, sort of at the end of this sort of first iteration of this institute, we'll be looking at seeing how do we grow and how we build this into next summer. Again, we have lots of things sort of behind the scenes that are working on that we're thinking about doing. Things from anything from like badges to micro credentials to certification. I have partnerships that I've previously had that I can tap into with some universities. So again, this year was like sort of like pilot year, sort of see how it goes and then see how to like build it up into next year. November. So last year we started our first AIELOC conference. Very elated about that because again, I think so often we would talk to a lot of international education associations and we would, a lot of times it dealt with like who's getting to lead. And again, why does that not really reflect, our international world? So what we do is we host a November conference. Totally all the facilitators, all speakers are people of color, hands down, bottom line. Because again, no excuses. I don't want to hear that. I didn't know, can't find, didn't know. It's like, no, there are people out here, phenomenal people doing phenomenal work. And we highlight them. We make sure that we put them out there. And I mean, the feedback last year was tremendous. Like people were, beyond impressed, what you be expecting. So that's an annual every November, a conference, a convening, open to anyone in the ecosystem who wants to come, listen, learn, join. And, I think that's, again, that was one of our things that we want to make sure that we didn't really see it often. How do we craft and create that, and make that just an ongoing part, of the organization. But at the same time, we're also doing other, programs such as collecting stories from members. So almost like an oral history to learn about them. And I think that was more or less, so next generation, those folks who have mentioned that I went to a website and I checked out the school or the leadership team and I didn't really see people who either look like me or, they were saying, so we want to make sure that folks know that there are people of color out here working in international school space, hear their stories, learn about them, learn about their journeys and their work. So we're about about almost 20 stories, and then that'll be added to the website. So again, people can hear, listen, and learn about those different stories. And some other programs, we were, different spaces that have been set up this year. And I think this is the beauty of AIELOC that we've loved. It's members that have come and said, we would love to set up a space for those teachers in Africa who are international schools, Black women in international schools, self-care, which you've been a part of, API educators. So I think that's the beauty, is that those are led by members who come and propose it. And we're like, how can we support you? How can we support and get the word out about, a new space that's been set up. And then next year, we're going to do something for folks that are doing like their DEI, DEIJ coordinators at their schools. And then there's like a new leadership cadre. And then, like we said, more with research.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's so much that you're doing that it's just, like I said, it's difficult to keep up. And I'm looking forward to sort of linking more and trying to do some of the things that you're doing, in the coming year, because it's all about learning. And that's constant, I think. It is constant. And, with the things that you're doing, it looks as if constant learning and collaboration as well, which is just, amazing. I'm going to ask another question. You've got you talked a little bit about involving others and involving the wider community. Have you have some goals or a pathway for your organization? When you looked at that, did you include a lot of people? Was there inclusive collaboration, or was there a small group of people who sort of looked at that?
Yeah, great question. And I think that's, I think even over the course of this year, shifting into the different groups that I just mentioned, that's been sort of a partner core. And so I think from our advisory council, our reps, our representatives, our fellows, our leadership team, a lot of times any of those ideas or things that come up from, hey, has anyone heard of a speaker or someone wrote a book? So Dr. Danao Tanu, we learned about because of Dominique Blue. She's on our advisory council. So that happens. So there's sort of like this internal sort of talking that goes on within folks within AIELOC. But at the same time, one thing that recently came up from one of our aspiring leaders, which I'll talk about that program too in a bit, is Diana Pacheco out of Taiwan sort of pitched, hey, here's an idea to create like an almost like an ideas lab. And I love this because she's like, I participated in this before, and her and I are connecting coming up in a couple of weeks to talk about it. So we posted on a Facebook group ideas, things that people want to see, things that are missing, even again, things that we don't even, we didn't even consider. So people are starting to populate, put ideas down around like language, around like higher education. So what are some things that they don't see that they want to see more of? And then how do we shape and craft that? And so again, a lot of it is that the members, it's our partners, even who are, anything from recruitment companies to accreditation agencies that come on, and we did a listening circle with them earlier this month. So again, and we also collect data on their own work. So again, a big piece of what we want to make sure we're doing is also how do we monitor and hold each other accountable? Not just us saying what are you doing, but like how are we holding ourselves accountable even? So yeah, when we say like inclusive, is making sure that different voices, pathways, from feedback from members who can email us at any time, again, with these ideas, to like our, anything on social media, folks that are sharing and things of that nature. So yeah, we try to make sure that all different stakeholders, know that there's, this policy of, you can share it and we're going to listen, we're going to consider it and kind of link, connect with you to see, is that something that we want to do or not? And does it fit in with the bigger goals? And then when I say on the bigger goals, we always say, like, especially when folks are joining, either before they join or when they, before they, or if they're interested, we say, look at our International Educator Equity Statement, because that directly tells you what you're getting into, so we make sure that people, that's shared, it's like, here is what we believe. And that statement was jointly written with a colleague out of China in 2019, 2020. It was released like March of 2020. But again, that sort of shared, this is who we are, this is what we pledge to do. And so when we're looking at, making goals, we're looking at the work of the organization, we're literally looking at that as a place and a space to make sure that it's aligning.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of collaboration that you're doing with everybody is really interesting. And as you're growing constantly, when you come to review anything like that, or you may have already, have you found that difficult, or is it easy because people are coming in and they are so on board?
I think it's a combination. I think it's let's start with the easy. The easy is, those people who are, oh, I've been looking, I've been seeking, I've been searching, I finally found, or someone told me about, or wow, I just learned about. I think that's the sort of the easy side. So it's not, no one has to sell anything. No one has to try to convince people of. It's people who, again, have either been doing the work. I mean, we get emails that I've been in international education for 20 years, 30 years. Like people like out of the blue. And it's like, wow. Like, one, we want your story. We want to interview you. We want, you be part of our oral history. But just again, the opportunity just to learn from them and to listen and hear from them. So I think definitely the easy part is those people who are like, I just saw this on, whatever social media, or I heard about this, or I was invited. And I came, and I'm definitely, I read the statement, and this is aligned to, the work that I'm doing or what I want to do. The difficult part, because there's always going to be some challenges, which we're grateful for. I think that's the big thing is we definitely celebrate, the work, but there all, are going to be times where there are challenges. And we, you're in the Facebook group, we post especially our fellows are active. So I think that's the thing that, and then that's on purpose. We want them engaged, especially on the advocacy side. What does that look like? What does that mean to advocate for others, to look and see and consider? And so anything from, they will challenge, organizations, professionally, just to say, here's some things to think about. I attended this, I partook in this, I read this. Here's some questions. And again, very constructive, but here's some questions, things I wonder. And I think the challenge comes when either people don't want to listen, which again, our thing is this, there's a learning that's going on. So to dismiss it is to say like, okay, I know I'm in a profession as a lifelong learner, and I would hope that, we all are, as we talked before we started, because I mean, that's what keeps me young. I mean? Like when I tell people, they're like, you're how old? You've been doing this how long? That's what keeps me, the learning is what keeps me young. The young people, be on this panel yesterday with the Reset Revolution and the Organization to Colonize International Schools. Oh my God. I mean, I could have just went on and on after being on with them for an hour. I mean, so that's what keeps me young. Mahar, our intern that just concluded, those are the things that keep us young. And so I think when it's a dismissing and then ignoring and the silencing and not wanting to listen, I think those are the challenging parts. But for us, we persist, and when I say we persist, is like, we're not going to give up. If we know that there are schools and orgs and people in places that are going to engage in the work, that's who we'll start with. Because we know, and I spoke about this at some point, when I was a coach, I used to do the hangout. Those are those educators that are like, I'm good. I don't really need, any support. But it's like, but I've been either assigned to you or, and you may have been on that list or like, please go hang out there. And so I would, just hang out within the classroom, hang out. I, talk to one scholar in the classroom. I go and support a scholar. I share that information with the teacher. Then I go back and that scholar may have told a couple other scholars about, hey, Mr. S is coming, let's go talk. He's back there at the math table. Let's go have a talk with him. So now you got 3, 4, 5 scholars coming, sharing back with the teacher. And then over time, and I think that's the thing, over time, it got to the point where the teacher's like, oh, I have a question, or by the way, or can you come model this? Or can you show me? Mm-hmm. There we go. So we hang out, when there's a challenge or, there's a dismiss. So we're not, and for us, it might be a not right now, for folks. So, but we don't give up on people, because again, this work, that we're doing is too important. We know that there are issues that I can go through. I have lists over the last months. I've talked to people that have had issues at schools and with recruitment, and things of that nature. So we know that there are still some things that need to be, some work that needs to be done. So that's why we are around. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I just want to touch on, you talk about the different sort of organizations that you've connected with, and you've connected with a lot of teachers, schools and so forth, but connecting with the wider community of those organizations, because you have the Facebook group, which is an affinity group. As you branch out and you start connecting, and having those conversations, which I know you have been, how has that been? Has it been difficult? Are you, like you just said, you're focusing on people first who want to listen, and then you're branching out? Could you tell me a little bit more about, that story and where you might be going? I know it's a big sort of question, but
yeah, let's see what I capture. So, like you say, like I think it's the going back to that, what's easy, what's challenging. It's easy is when people are open, want to dialogue, and our big thing is like we invite folks, meaning we say, hey, come to this community visioning, or here's this webinar that's up and coming, or this opportunity, here's the Summer Institute, for example. So come check it out. And so I think from, let's say if we get an email with someone who I want to learn more information, it'd be from an email to like a conversation I had with a school leader the other day. And so from that, it's, we're going to follow back up in August. And I said, hey, here's the Summer Institute. And for her, it's like, hey, I have teachers I know who they've been looking for, they've been asking for. So like, here's the memberships. We share based on, needs. And then from that, we'll have a follow-up conversation because her school's interested in joining, but at the same time, learning more about what these other schools are doing, and so we're like, oh, these are some of the schools that have facilitated. Here's what they did. There's recordings, we can link you accordingly. And again, I think it's so people see that they're part of a community, that, because I think what's happening is there's some schools that feel like, oh, it's just us, how do we do this? Or we're trying this, it's not working, so we want to make sure they know, no, there's this community of folks who are doing this work. Come join us, and things of that nature. The organizations, to be honest, for the most part, I think they've been very open, because again, we do the same thing with them. We say, come share, or they want to have a, one-on-one talk. So we might have a discussion talk, they may share where they're at. If they've made a statement, we started looking through that statement, we might ask questions, give feedback. But also our big thing is like, this is in words. So what have you did, and then again, organizations are at different places. Some are like, we now have a designated committee that's looking consistently, we're looking at policies, a lot of the accreditation agencies have now embedded, within, certain language and standards that deal with either anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion, justice. And so I think those are those easier conversations, because again, people are doing work and they're looking to see, and they know that it's not just short term. It's not just, okay, we wrote this down last year, but it's like, that's what we're coming to, we're asking, okay, that was nice to say last year. What have you did as a result of? And then not only what have you did, like, how are you communing with others who are doing this work? And that's our big thing. It's like, don't feel like, I have to be in a little office crafting and creating, trying to figure this out and pulling my hair out, when there's this wider community that in the space that is being provided, where you can learn and lean on each other, as you're engaging accordingly.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, I think. And the more you build and create and bring people in, the stronger the force will be, I think.
Yeah, definitely, exactly.
I'm going to ask a final sort of question. It's about consultants. So when you started this, did you bring any, because people have been doing this work for a long time, did you bring any consultants to help you with setup, with strategy, with organizing, everything? Or maybe you didn't.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't, I don't think directly. So I don't think there was like a, AIELOC consultant that was hired per se. I think our the way we sort of proceeded has been those folks who we knew had been doing it. So like the Darnell Fines, the Alyssa Perez, it was like, okay, let's lean on them, reach out to them, again, make sure they're amplified. And there was opportunities through like the Diversity Collaborative, where it's like they were building a list, of consultants. They asked us, because they knew about us, a couple of years ago when we were just a Facebook group. And they sort of came to us first, said, hey, we know you all know some people who are doing this work. Great, here are the names. I know I think that's one of the things that we're constantly doing. So making sure that those folks who are doing the work, because there'll be some people who are sort of new, and again, we're looking at like, okay, nice to meet you. But making sure that, these people have been doing this for 5+ years, 10+ years. Again, making sure how can we amplify them, but also giving a voice in places like our Institute, courses, webinars, things that we do in our community visioning, making sure schools know about them, making sure that we are recommending them, which, happens often. That will come up, people say, hey, we're looking for folks to help us with, and we're like, here are the people who you should be, looking at. Or if they're like, hey, we're looking on social media. So we'll share, your community on Facebook, and we share ours. So again, that's the big thing, is like how to make sure people know about the community and those folks that have been working in the community. And I think a lot of it, going back to goals is, like we're saying, looking at other associations, like Cam out of ECIS, her and I have, because we're based, I think, the two folks of color who are like, because I remember talking to her, she said, I'm the only person. I said, that's right. I said, okay, you and I are, it's us now who have associations that are with the international schools specifically, but like linking with, her, and again, others that are in other parts. So like we talked to Peter and his crew out of ASA in Africa, and talking with now Amisa out of South America. So again, linking with other association leaders at the same time. So, because again, we want to see what folks are doing, and obviously for us, it's what are they not doing, And, you'll start to see that some of those same consultants that, we know of and have been doing work are doing work in those different places and spaces too.
Yeah, and I can see everywhere you're looking now. I just saw Darnell and Alyssa doing something I want my school to connect with. I thought it just makes sense. There's a lot of organisations here in the UK doing things, but I think we need specific international school.
Exactly.
So, Kevin, I really want to thank you so much. I have so many more questions, which I know I'm going to be able to ask anytime, I hope, that I want anyway. Yeah, it's been great. I know we're going to be connecting ongoing anyway. And so thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you.